Ukraine-Russia war, and it is a war. It is not a peaceful operation or whatever Putin claims it to be. It is an invasion by Russia into a sovereign country, Ukraine. I'm going to give a little take on it from a location that actually is a Ukrainian Refugee Center in České Budějovice, in English Bohemian Badvais. It's in the southern part of Czech Republic. It's actually a city where I was born, and from where I escaped communism twice, once as a child and once as an adult. We're standing on an old military base, airport, where the MiGs, the Russian warplanes, were stationed. You can see those hills, that hill, and then there's a bunch of hills. That actually is where the MiGs, where the planes were stored and hidden from enemy eyes. And I actually come from a village that's just right across the field that way. And they turned this old military base after communism fell, after the Iron Curtain fell. They turned it into a civilian airport, and now they turned the airport into a Ukrainian Refugee Center. So, first of all, Putin's not crazy, okay? He's not a madman. That would be to dismiss him. He's very strategic, let me say that way. He picks his timing where he invades other countries or territories and takes them over, like in like Crimea, like in Georgia, Abkhazia, and another part, Ossetia. He took over, and now he's using the excuse. First, he wanted just the couple regions in Ukraine that border with Russia that's been in conflict for years, where the Russian separatists were trying to separate from Ukraine, and the Donbas, the Luhan Republic, and Donetsk, I think, in a republic that Putin just acknowledged. But it's not enough for him. He's trying to take over Ukraine, at least half by estimates. But this is nothing about denazification, as he claims, of Ukraine. There's a long history, which I'm not going to get into, where, yes, you might hear Bandera, Banderovci. That was during the Second World War, where Stefan Bandera created a whole army that was actually fighting against the Soviet Union, against the communists, and of course they joined, they had to, the Nazi Germany, because Nazi Germany conquered Ukraine. So, but the main thing is that it was not about being Nazis, as Putin claims. But it is not about Nazis, as Putin claims. That history was more fighting against the communists, the Russians, the Soviet Union. So there's a lot of misconception about that. Putin, there's a lot of talk about, which is crazy, to assassinate Putin, that the Russian people should assassinate him, and then things would change. That is not true. Putin, as I said, is not a madman. He is not somebody that does not represent Russia. The vast majority of Russian people support Putin. Putin exists because of the Russian people. Yes, there are good Russian people that they don't want to have anything to do with this, but from the beginning of history of the Russian people and the Russian country, they've been conquerors. They were conquering countries all around them. That's how they grew so big, because they conquered other lands from other tribes, other nations, other countries, and that is in their nature. A lot of people might not like it, but if you look at all the history, it's constantly conquest of surrounding areas and growing bigger. The whole Russian thing is nas mnogo, there are many of us, my большое, we are big, and that is, it's in their DNA. They are warring, aggressive conquering nation. Again, as I said, not all of them. But so he represents the Russian people. That's why he has the support. And he has the support of what is going on. Talking to a lot of these refugees is that a lot of the Russian people agree with what's going on. And of course you can say they're propagandized and they don't have all the information. And to a certain degree that is true. I mean, the propaganda, I lived underneath it, I know how it works, it's very powerful, and the information, limiting information and everything. So, you know, you can claim that the Russian nation is brainwashed, but that's what I am conquering, is that a lot of them are not, and they still support it because that is who they are. Even if you travel the world, when you come across Russian people, they are arrogant. They act like they own everything. So to get rid of Putin is not going to solve anything. Somebody else is going to come, maybe even worse than Putin. So it is the expansionism of the Russians from their beginning of their history, and it will not stop. And if they take over Ukraine, Moldova is next under some other pretense, and other countries, as they did as the Soviet Union. Okay, so but this is a much bigger picture. This is not that Russia bad, European Union, Western Europe good, America good, Russia bad. This is not black and white. This is a lot more complicated than that. And we would really have to go back and look at the Great Reset. I know this might sound like a conspiracy theory, but don't take it from me. Just go to the World Economic Forum website, look at the Great Reset that they have listed there, or get a book from Klaus Schwab about the Great Reset and what is the goal of this forum, that pretty much anybody who is an elite in the world is part of it. And they've been working on it for decades now, and it truly is globalism. This truly is to bring in one world order with one political, economic, and social system. It is kind of a hybrid between communism and fascism and socialism, because all these doctrines are from the same bucket. They got the same father of this ideology, which is evil. And so just because sometimes they fight with each other doesn't mean anything. But so kind of a slant version between this, where there's going to be few elites and multinational corporations, huge corporations, that are going to be ruling the world because they know better than you what's good for the world. And as Klaus Schwab said, you know, if they implement their plan, which they think they will, that it will end up where nobody's going to have, of course, besides them, nobody's going to have private property and everybody's going to be happy. Okay? Communism on steroids. So when you start looking at all the, follow the thread, like the Minotaur, trying to get out. So when you start following the thread to get to the light, to the truth, you will see the connections with the corporations connected, with the World Forum connected, with banking, with the press. The world press is pretty much controlled by AP, Reuters, and AFP, which is French. You're getting most of your information. So it's all intercombined. And of course, Bill Gates, his foundation, George Soros, the World Economic Forum, as I said, it's all connected, and all these people are actually part of it. Klaus Schwab bragged about it, that even Putin is one of his young global leaders. So is Justin Trudeau, and that Klaus Schwab controls half of the government of Canada, so of the parliament. So you got to look a little behind the smoke screen, what you're being presented. Here's a conflict, which, as even Rahm Emanuel said, we can never let good crisis go to waste, which the World Economic Forum and people around it, they were saying that the pandemic of COVID, it's a great opportunity to finally bring in the Great Reset. So this is everything about the one world order. I know a lot of people are tired of hearing it because that term's been around for a long time, but that doesn't mean they haven't stopped working on it, and they are closer than ever. And so you had the pandemic as a crisis which totally uprooted the world. I mean, the world's different now. They, of course, using the pandemic, they brought in a lot more government control, and what Klaus Schwab said, eliminating private property, so destroying the middle class, destroying small businesses. That is the goal. So pandemic is ending. They just couldn't keep it up anymore. So suddenly a next crisis hits. If people think that this is a coincidence or that it's not, because another one of the best crises to change the world is, of course, a war. It's war, it's a pandemic, and it's an economic collapse. So the pandemic helped an economic, not total collapse, but totally, definitely it ruined the economy. War displaces nations and borders and everything, which, if you look at the First World War, how it changed the world, totally changed Europe, politically, geographically, and everything. You look at Second World War, how it changed the world. And so a war is another best thing how to install the Great Reset and One World Order, because it's gonna destroy the economy, of course, it's gonna make people poor, it's gonna destroy the middle class, destroy the currencies, and I can go on and on what all it's gonna affect. And it's an old principle. If you wanna rebuild Rome, you gotta burn it down. You look at Nero. Nero wanted to rebuild Rome to his liking, wanted to build his palaces in the middle of the Rome, but there were houses there, so he set it on fire, and then he blamed it on the Christians. So it's not just destroying so you can rebuild on the ashes, but it's also blaming somebody else. And it's don't look who the true culprits of the actions, who it is or who these people are. So you don't hear much about organizations, investment companies like Blackrock or Blackstone or Vanguard. Another one is State Street, I think, where they control so much of the world investment of money. BlackRock like 10 trillion, and they'll argue like 20 trillion. So somebody once said that if BlackRock wanted to shut down economically Europe, they can do it in a day, one of the insiders of BlackRock. So there's a lot more going on here, and a lot of it is just to pretend, as I said, okay, Russia bad, Western Europe good, where they're all working on the same plan. Do I see everything, how they're trying to accomplish it? No. Just because Putin attacks Ukraine doesn't mean that Putin is not part of the Great Reset. I believe he is. Just because the World Economic Forum now took his profile off their website doesn't mean he's still not part of it. Because a lot of these things are distractions, perceived enemies that are really not enemies, that are working together. Taking over Ukraine is a huge thing, because it's the breadbasket of Europe, but not just the breadbasket of Europe. China takes crops from there. Middle East take crops from there. Africa takes crops from there. So, and if they don't plant right now, and Ukraine said that they're not gonna export right now their grain and their produce. So what's next? It's going to be hunger in these third developed countries that Ukraine supplies food to a lot, and it's going to be, even in Europe, it's going to be that the food prices are going to go up. Now all these sanctions against Russia. Now Russia's doing sanctions against the West, so. Fertilizer, Russia exports fertilizer. Russia exports minerals and materials that are needed for microchips and for making cars and stuff. So this is going to be a huge worldwide crisis where everything's going to go up, going to make people poorer. So war, famine, pandemic, and even if some natural disaster hit, which thank God they're not in control of, but if they would implement that as well. And it's as part of the global reset, Great Reset, to one world government. Also, that means no nations, no borders. That's where George Soros also comes in, where George Soros, his Open Society Foundation, where he wants to eliminate borders. That's where they were pushing immigration of people from Africa and the Middle East into Europe to get rid of nationalities, to get rid of borders, to get rid of states. Because if you have too many nationalities, if you have too many borders, if you have too many nations, if you have too many religious views, too many political views, too many social views, then the people are harder to control. The easiest to control them is to put them all under one umbrella with one mindset, which I grew up in communism. Everything was disseminated from the top, one view on everything. And then the people were easier to control. Look at the area that the Soviet Union controlled and the millions and millions of people. It was vast. And so there's nothing new under the sun, as the Bible says. They're just working on the same thing, trying to accomplish this. You might look at stuff like, well, George Soros, went against the Soviet Union. Now George Soros is supporting Ukraine against Russia. Again, I'm saying perceived enemies may be working together just for our benefit, that they're actually against each other. But that is the one thing where George Soros had to take down wanted to take down the Soviet Union, because Soviet Union, United States, or even Russia right now, these empires or these powerful countries, they stand in the way of globalism. So you need to take them down. So Russia and Ukraine is going to accomplish a lot of it towards the global one world government, the Great Reset. America's been taken down from the inside mainly, hugely from the inside, morally, politically, socially, economically. United States is being destroyed, and that's the goal of these people. Even if they're the president of the United States, of course, a lot in our government are part of this, just like in the government of Canada, just like in the government of EU and all the European countries working on this. Where does China come in? China comes in as well. Now Blackrock made a big deal with buying energy from Saudi Arabia with the Chinese company, 49%. So they are all working for the same goal. Yes, could there be some division where, okay, who is going to rule the one world order? Who is going to rule it? That definitely can be a problem, where there might be some separation, where this faction of the plan want to rule and this faction wants to. But at the end, the goal is the same. The social credit from China is going to come. Of course, the West is looking at a model as European Union to establish everywhere in the world, to establish the Great Reset. China is looking that it's going to be their way. Putin might be looking that it's going to be their way, and Russia will be in charge of it, or him. But regardless, they might have fractions between themselves. Their goal is the same. And even if there would be legitimately fighting against each other, like in Ukraine, it's going to still end up the same. It's only who's going to end up on the top. So you got to look a little deeper into what is going on in Ukraine. Of course, Ukraine, huge corruption in that country. Biden helped it, of course. He was part of it with his son. George Soros has been in Ukraine for a long time through his non-governmental organizations. So the picture is much bigger. And as I said, I cannot see all the threads and how it all fits together. But when you see the big picture, then a lot of the things that you see happening, it's like a puzzle. You know what the big picture is, and you start seeing the puzzles, you can put it together, even if you don't know every little piece. But be assured, that's what this is all about. it is to take people's rights away, their freedoms, their prosperity, destroy the middle class, make everybody poor and equal, just like we behind the Iron Curtain. We were all equal, some more equal than others, as George Orwell wrote. We still had the top percent or whatever that ruled us. But yeah, all the rest of us, we were equally poor, equally oppressed, equally miserable. So, and that is the goal. And we were more easily controlled because of that. Once people have prosperity, they don't depend on the government, it's harder to control them and oppress them. That's why you have to destroy their independence, their prosperity. And that's what all this is about. Everything is going to go up. It is going to be a nightmare. How fast it's going to come, who knows? They weren't able to totally manage with the pandemic to accomplish it, but they made huge headways for it. This war is going to be another huge headway, and it's coming unless people stop it and wake up. So wake up, smell the liberal, educate yourself, and don't take it.